Welcome, folks, to the 2023 Virtual Food Summit, Food Recovery and Food Waste and its Impact on Climate Change. For those of you who weren't here earlier, we are recording this. This will be shared to all the participants. It'll also be posted online on our website. So I want to welcome everybody. Hi, my name is Christine Smith. I am the Program Manager of the Marion Institute's South Coast Food Policy Council. I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and as more people, Liz is letting in more people, we welcome you all, but we also want to give a big thanks to a lot of people who've helped put this together. The Office of Senator Mark Montigny and his staff, the South Coast Food Policy Council Community Advisory Board, and its working group, the Education and Communication Working Group, which is the group that helped put this together. We want to thank the Marion Institute staff and many other people who are involved in tonight's event. So I want to go over quickly how the evening will unpack. We'll invite Senator Mark Montigny to open up and share as our co-host a few opening remarks, and then we will recognize any elected officials in our space tonight. Then I will introduce Christine Beling from the EPA, who will be our MC for the night, who will then introduce our keynote speaker, Lana Suarez from the EPA. And after the keynote, if we have a little bit of time, there'll be some time for questions maybe for the keynote. And then we will ask our MC, Chris, to facilitate our panel discussion on all the topic of in their particular area of expertise for our panelists. So now it is my honor to introduce to you Senator Mark Montigny from the 2nd Bristol and Plymouth District to share opening remarks. Senator Mark Montigny represents a district of approximately 180,000 constituents in the city of New Bedford and its surrounding towns of Acushnet, Dartmouth, Fairhaven, and Mattapoisett. So that's down in the South Coast for those of you who aren't familiar with Massachusetts. Throughout his legislative career, the senator has been a lead sponsor of progressive legislation concerning human rights, healthcare, and economic issues. As a New Bedford native, he relishes the opportunity to speak on behalf of his hometown and has been a proud supporter of vital state programs supporting local agriculture and access to healthy food, including the Healthy Incentive Program and the Universal School Meals for Children. He is widely recognized as a key leader of the revitalization of New Bedford's waterfront and the ongoing arts and cultural renaissance in the city's downtown. Beyond Beacon Hill, Senator Montigny has traveled to over 90 countries on various international political and education exchanges, including relief work in Haiti following the devastating earthquake in 2010. Most importantly, Senator Montigny is the proud father to his 9-year-old son, who is the center of his universe and his greatest blessing. Senator Montigny, you're welcome to our space.
It's good to be here. I skipped a generation, so don't let the gray hair fool you. He really is 9 and I'm really his daddy. and I just got off the phone with him. He's with his mommy, and he has a cast on his arm, the first broken bone. So I'm learning what all of you learned long ago. It's great to be here. First, I just want to thank the Marion Institute and the South Coast Policy Council for all the good work you do. My reward to you will be that I'll be brief. I could not promise that if I had a podium and a microphone, but the Zoom stuff still, years in, it still is the only thing that has contained my remarks, particularly when you give me an opening where it should be like, hi, thank you. Look forward to learning from you. Good night. But I never will do that because I have to give you some message. And if I tried to speak about the issue at hand when I should be doing more listening, that would be unfortunate for all of you. But I will say this, I will challenge. I know many of you, because I looked at the participants list, and I know that you spend a lot of time thinking about this. I know that you spend a lot of time running programs that actually save lives and feed people, and you think not only about the hungry, but you also think about the impact on the environment. And I'm particularly pleased after meeting with the staff recently that this year, or this summit, will not only be about how we we deal with the underfed, essentially, but how we do it in a sustainable way. So we look forward to learn more than teaching tonight. But I do want to say a couple of things. We've been more generous than usual because there's more money flowing than usual. So if you look at the way we have funded many of the programs that you access or that you help people in need access, we've done pretty well in this budget. What I fear, though, because so much of the funding is what I'll call artificial or one-time funding as a result of the pandemic, and I would even argue that we have squandered an opportunity to target that funding in programs of need like this because of the main message I want to give you tonight, and that is something it's not an exaggeration to say that many political bodies, starting with our Congress, have become almost dysfunctional, particularly in the way they serve the needy, if you will. So I'm going to challenge you that although you're busy running your programs, and I know some of you have very specific policy interests and policy experience, it's not enough. What you have to do if you're on here, and I think we had over 100 people sign up, you have to take your network, if you haven't already, and become more involved in the politics and the policy. You just can't expect good policy to come out of Beacon Hill or Washington, or even at the local level, if you're not demanding it. I'll tell you that if I were retiring, or as the Senate President Bill Bulger used to say, he retired due to illness because the voters got sick of him. I always thought that was interesting, because sooner or later you either leave or the voters ask you to leave. And I'm hoping that it's the former for me someday. But if I were to, in one paragraph, suggest what those who really care about progressive interests and policy should do more of, it's to act like the special interests that are taking every single day. They are spending, because they can't do the grassroots lobbying that you all do and that we enjoy listening to, they will hire the most connected and cozy lobbyists down in Washington and on Beacon Hill, and it's a zero-sum game. Even when the money is flowing as it is now, and even when the programs have been more generously funded in areas around food policy, around recycling, around climate change, it's nowhere near enough. You know it isn't. For every time you have an expansion of a program with a marginal benefit, there's a waiting list or there's a concern, particularly in the areas of the topic of interest this evening. You cannot afford to allow the special interests who dominate political bodies, they do on Beacon Hill and they do in Washington, to go unanswered. So you can do all God's work all day, and if you're not at local meetings where policy is made and budgets are dictated and passed, if you're not involved in the politics of Beacon Hill or whatever state you happen to be from, I understand some are not from Massachusetts, if you're not pressing every button on your congressional delegation, and if you think for some reason, because we're blessed in Massachusetts with a legislative delegation both in the House as well as in the U.S. Senate, that we would consider progressive, and most would, if you think that's enough and that somehow it's all being heard and all getting done, then you're not reality focused. It is every single budget. When your line items, the line items that we'll speak about tonight, at least tangentially or indirectly, they are affected by, in most cases, professional lobbyists on the other side. And I've had people over the years say, well, what do you mean? Who would be against feeding children in school? Who would be against a program that encourages local farmers to grow organic food and then make it available to people that are using government programs that are used to not having access to healthy food? That's not the other side of the equation. What happens is the zero-sum game in flush times and not, and I think that we're going to come into the opposite of what we've experienced the last 2 years. I won't get into it today. I'm not here to give an economic speech, but you have to, every one of you have to realize that in every budget, and I spent 4 years chairing the Massachusetts, the Senate Ways and Means Committee, which is essentially the gatekeeper for billions of dollars. And you'd be shocked that even with that kind of funding, and now it's over 55 billion in Massachusetts, it's still a fight for resources. So even if you're doing, I'll close with this, the best, and you're serving, and you think that you're meeting the needs to the best of your ability, there's more out there in good times and in bad, but you have to be involved in the politics and policy. That's my one message that I want to give to you tonight, because I don't want to use the time just to tell you, here's what we funded. This is the increase. This is great work. We're all celebrating together. There's tremendous need. It's growing at a time when I think the state and federal budget will begin to snap back over the next year or two. So get involved, because you can bet the special interests, and I put that in big quotes, they are much more sophisticated. It's almost inversely proportionate. Think of the folks that deserve it the least. I mean, we have $1 billion 10-year program to subsidize the biotech industry. Anybody who thinks they need it doesn't understand big pharma and doesn't understand biotech, but they get it because it's inversely proportionate when they lobby. They hire the best lobbyists because on merit and grassroots lobbying, they would lose. So you need to meet that with accessing through your vast network. You represent and touch through your boards, through your volunteers, through your clients, thousands and thousands of voters. They need to become more involved. That's the only message I can give you from Beacon Hill, other than we'll keep fighting. There are people like Representative Paul Schmidt and others in the delegation who really care about this, and we do our best. But you have to talk to us, and then you need to back us up when we're fighting for the resources. Good luck tonight, and thanks everyone for your hard work coming up to this summit.
Thank you, Senator Montigny. Heartfelt words, especially aimed at a Food Policy Council. We do need everybody's support, so thank you so much. And all the support you've done in the food system already. Fantastic. So what I'd like to do is turn now to the different elected officials that are in the space. If you can unmute yourself and show your video, just share who you are, who you represent in your office for elected officials. No? Okay.
Hi, Elizabeth Tubbs-Rhoda. I work for Congressman Bill Keating.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for being here. We appreciate Congressman Keating being in this space. Thank you. Anyone else?
I want to introduce Audra Riding, because she has worked so hard. She probably was trying to stay anonymous and off video, but she's not only my general counsel, she cares deeply about this. And Jacob Miller, as you know, was formally involved in it, but Audra has taken that along with all of her other duties. So thanks, Audra, for your leadership.
Thank you, Senator. I knew you'd find a way to mention me.
Oh, you knew it. You knew you weren't getting away with blurring yourself out, however you do it on this thing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Audra. Okay. So thank you all. And again, we're just deeply honored to have you all here. And what we're going to do is we're going to move on with what we're doing tonight. I'd like to introduce to you our MC, Christine Beling. Chris is a project engineer at the United States Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, in New England. She is the team leader for the Sustainable Materials Management Program. Chris provides technical assistance and outreach on sustainable materials management priorities to New England states, the local governments, businesses, and institutions. Dedicated to achieving the national goal of reducing food waste by 50% by 2030 and increasing the national recycling rate to 50% by 2030. Chris currently manages over $9 million in grants and New England stakeholders in a variety of programs, including healthy communities, anaerobic digestion capacity building, pollution prevention, brownfields, and most recently, solid waste infrastructure for recycling. Chris holds a BS in chemical engineering from Tufts University. Chris, I turn it over to you.
Thanks. I always hate the reading the bio, so I appreciate you. I appreciate that. It's a pleasure to be with you all here tonight, and I recognize some names on the screen. I've been working in this area for close to 20 years, and it's really great to see wasted food kind of on the front burner because it's taken a long time for that to get here. So what I'd like to do is start right away introducing my colleague, Lana Suarez. Lana joins us from Washington, D.C. She runs our headquarters office. And for those of you who don't know, EPA is broken up into 10 regions. We happen to be Region 1. And Lana is our team leader down in the Washington area. Lana and I have been working on this issue probably for over 10 years. And it's been a pleasure. And she has a lot of great and new information to share. So I did not read Lana's bio, so I apologize for that, Lana, but I'll just say you're a Peace Corps volunteer and you graduated from the Michigan School of Natural Resources and the Environment. So welcome to our New England audience, and please share the connection between wasted food and climate change, which often gets overlooked.
It does often get overlooked, and I'm so happy to be a part of this event. I do not run the entire headquarters office for EPA, but I do lead sustainable management of food work out of our headquarters office. And Chris is one of my regional colleagues, and I'm very happy to have colleagues across all 10 EPA regions, and we all work very well together on this very interesting topic. Okay, so I'm gonna try to share my screen so we can get started. And I want to make sure you're seeing just the slide. Is that right?
So far, I just see you have started screen sharing, but it has not popped up quite yet.
Okay. It's loading. Okay, well, I can start telling stories while we wait. I don't need the slide as long as you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. So, I'm just going to keep pausing, and someone give me a thumbs up or whenever you can see the share.
Not yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I'll let it keep.
Close it and then restart it.
She's gone.
Yep, we can't hear you, Lana. You have your mute on.
I got kicked out and then came back. So, we practice this, but this is what happens in a virtual world. I'm going to share again, right?
It did work 15 minutes ago.
There's so many more people watching. Okay.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
Good. All right. Maybe we can edit that out later. Okay, we'll start again. So, hi, I'm Lana Suarez. I lead the sustainable management of food work at EPA. I'm happy to be with you here tonight, and I'm going to try to make this really clear connection between food waste and climate change. I'm going to share some new research from EPA that reinforces that connection, and I'm going to tell you all more about the work EPA is doing to address food loss and waste, and I'm going to end with some actions we can all take. First, I want to start with a story, because that's fun. You can learn a little bit more about me other than I was a Peace Corps volunteer many, couple decades ago. It's a story about bananas. And when my son was 6, I picked him up from school. And as many parents know, you pick up your child and they throw their backpack at you. So I did this as I normally did, but this time the backpack was much heavier and it had a strange smell. And I took it, as I always did, and I asked what he was hauling in there. And he said, bananas. I am hauling bananas. And as it turned out, the kids during snack time that day were offered bananas as a snack. And due to the state of the bananas, the majority were rejected for whatever reason. We've all seen it and not wanted to eat that banana. So the teacher put them in the trash. None of the kids wanted to eat them. She put them in the trash. But my son said, no, my mom will do something with those bananas. And we don't throw away food. I was so proud. It was a moment as a mother, as a parent. And then I thought I do take my work home with me. So I shared that story to illustrate how we can all take action as individuals. And we all have a connection to this problem and some simple solutions at our fingertips. So again, what is the connection with food waste and climate? It may not be easy to immediately see when we see out of control wildfires or sea level rise and think, you know what, I really should have eaten my leftovers yesterday. But it's much bigger than that. So let's start with what causes climate change. Human activity releases greenhouse gases. Those gases create a greenhouse effect, causing the Earth's surface temperature to rise. And the human activities that we tend to think of connected to climate change are burning fossil fuels. And I'm here to tell you that wasting food is another human activity generating greenhouse gases. And then producing and moving around food uses valuable resources. What happens when we waste food? When we waste food, the land, the water, the energy, and other inputs that are used in producing, processing, transporting, preparing, storing, and disposing, it's a lot of steps. All of that food are wasted as well. Food loss and waste accounts for 8% of global human-caused greenhouse gas emissions. More than 85% of the emissions from landfilled food result from activities prior to disposal. So that's important. I'm going to say it again because I think it's a good statistic. More than 85% of greenhouse gas emissions from landfilled food waste result from activities prior to disposal. So before we even throw it in the trash can, there are emissions related. So every banana we throw away, we're also throwing away all the inputs that go into making it. All of those resources, the land, the water, the energy, every piece of organic food, organic waste like food, yard waste that goes into a landfill creates methane, which is a potent greenhouse gas. So this is another test to see if it works. And I want to share this video with everyone because I think it also tells a really good story.
No, we can't hear it.
No sound.
No sound.
Again, we practice this. Take two.
Oh, my sweet baby, I'll travel the world for you. I love you.
Can we get strawberries?
No, honey.
Please.
Okay.
I get a little sad every time I watch it. And that was a journey that strawberry went on. I mean, there's the drama of the romance with the lime, but you know, we really think about all of the steps that that one piece of fruit went through to make it to your home. So just thinking about those stages and all of the steps that the strawberries went through, we'll think about the US food supply chain. It begins with primary agricultural production and continues through distribution and processing, retail, and ends with consumption or waste of food at home or away from home, such as at restaurants or cafeterias. And I just wonder if you noticed all of those stages in that video. There are opportunities to reduce waste at every stage. So how much is there? In the US, it's estimated that 30 to 40% of all available food is wasted. There is a huge opportunity for improvement here. EPA estimates that over 66 million tons of wasted food was generated in 2019. Those are the most recent statistics we have right now, 2019. And almost 40 million tons went to landfills. Food is the single most common material found in landfills. And where's it coming from? Households. About 40% from households, but more than half comes from restaurants, food service, supermarkets, wholesalers, and other sources. So it's a lot. I mean, millions of tons, billions of pounds of wasted food. And what are the environmental impacts of food waste? Some are here on this slide that you can see. The resources that go into a year of food loss and waste in the United States are greenhouse gas emissions of more than 42 coal-fired power plants, enough water and energy to supply more than 50 million homes, enough fertilizer to grow all plant-based foods, and the area of agricultural land equal to New York and California combined. Keep in mind, this is all before we have to manage any food as waste. We have a new report out, which I'll talk a little bit about, because what about methane? It's a greenhouse gas connecting food waste to climate change. And in our most recent report, quantifying methane emissions from landfilled food waste is responsible for approximately 55 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions from landfills. And wasted food causes 58% of methane emissions from municipal solid waste landfills, even though it's only 24% of what's in the landfill. The bottom line is that diverting food waste from landfills would be an effective way to reduce methane emissions coming from municipal solid waste landfills. And so how do we divert from landfills? Let's talk about management pathways. This is the EPA food recovery hierarchy. It was created in the 1990s, and it lists management pathways in order of preference. And over the years, EPA has received many questions about the hierarchy, the order, the basis for the rankings, and how various pathways compared against each other. And we're not always able to answer this based on the latest science. But now, until just last week, we have some analysis and some more science in a new report called From Field to Bin, the Environmental Impacts of U.S. Food Waste Management Pathways. And we've translated the findings into a new ranking of pathways to replace the old hierarchy that we see here. Ta-da! I should have asked for a drum roll. This is the new wasted food scale. It replaces the old hierarchy, though I'll always have a place in my heart for the old hierarchy because it's everywhere. We see it everywhere. We have it on magnets. I have it on presentations. I see it in other people's presentations. But this is the new wasted food scale. It replaces the old hierarchy. The new scale ranks wasted food management pathways based on environmental impacts and highlights the importance of preventing wasted food in the first place and avoiding sending that wasted food to landfills, incinerators, or down the drain. Pathways are ranked from most to least environmentally preferable, from the top left to the top right. Pathways within the same tier are ranked equally, And the analysis, again, is based on environmental impacts, not on any economic or social impacts. So there's a lot more that you can do with this, but this is our new scale and we're very happy. And again, this is hot off the press, just released last week. There are some things that stayed the same. Of course, source reduction, prevention still at the top, along with donation and feeding animals, again, are closer to the top, and then landfill and incineration are still in the avoid area. We also added new pathways like upcycling, unharvested or plowed in, land application, and sewer wastewater treatment are new pathways that are included in the new scale. So it's very exciting, and I was very excited to share it with all of you tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about EPA's approach and what we're doing. Our work focuses on accelerating the prevention of food waste and the recycling of organics. And we do that by preventing the wasting of food across the supply chain from farm to fork and improving equitable access to healthy, nutritious food. We are really focused on prevention. It's usually the first thing we talk about when we talk about this topic, because if you prevent, then you don't have you have less to manage later. We released a social marketing toolkit earlier this year for preventing wasted food in communities, which was very exciting too. And I just wanted to point out that increasing access to healthy food is also included and is related to recovery and includes donation. So just another plug for donation. It's very important to all of us to support that action. We work with our federal partners at the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the Food and Drug Administration. We also work at the national and regional level with state and local partners to encourage and facilitate donation. And then we also want to increase the recycling rate for all organic waste, because even when we prevent waste as much as possible, we will always be left with inedible scraps to manage. Recycling organic waste such as food scraps and yard trim requires the appropriate infrastructure to be in place. It doesn't matter how much we collect if it has nowhere to go. It's just going to sit there in a pile and it won't be as beneficial to anyone. So we at EPA got some new funding from the bipartisan infrastructure law, and we were able to start some new grant programs. And one was the Solid Waste Infrastructure for Recycling grant program, and the other is the Recycling Education and Outreach grant program. So we just did an announcement in September for the first round of anticipated funding. And that's an investment that we haven't had before to support that infrastructure. And part of that infrastructure is managing organic waste and recycling organics. And then just number 3 here, enhancing, we want to enhance the policies to support both the prevention and increase organic waste recycling. We support policies through our networks and collaborations internally and externally. So that's just a little bit more about what EPA is doing. But I've talked about food waste, its environmental impacts, and the connection to climate change, and some of EPA's latest research and approaches. Now, what can we all do? This is something we can all feel empowered to take action on, because we all eat. We can't avoid it. I guess if you want to go on and, we all eat. There's no way around it. We can all start with ourselves. First, the most impactful action that I'm just going to keep repeating it because we do all day long. Most impactful action we can take is preventing food from going to waste in the first place. Because most of the embedded GHG emissions are created in the production, processing, distributing of the food, and not the end-of-life management of the food. So you can do some planning, meal plan, shop your refrigerator, think about storage. There are lots of tools out there right now, and we have a summary and point to a lot of different tools and resources on our website about preventing wasted food at home. The link's on the bottom of the slide if you want to visit there later. There are a lot of resources. I wanted to show an infographic about storage specific to your refrigerator. There's a lot going on here, but if you take away one thing from this infographic, it is do not store your milk on the door of the refrigerator. That is the warmest part, and you should never put perishables there. So one thing, and hopefully if this is available to others afterwards, you can take a closer look at this refrigerator demystified infographic. There are a lot of tips. And then just talking about preparation and cooking, use up the produce that's past its prime and soups and casseroles, stir fries, sauces, baked goods, and learn the difference between sell by, use by, best by, with all those expiration dates. Use your senses. If it doesn't look right, if it doesn't smell right, don't eat it. But if it looks fine, smells fine, is probably fine, and the date is meaningless. Get creative with those leftovers. We've all seen the Hellmann's commercials during the Super Bowl that you can throw anything in a casserole with mayonnaise and cheese, put it in the oven, and call it dinner. And it can be a complete surprise, maybe because I'm from the Midwest, that this sounds like home to me, but I've tried it. It's always a big hit, and no one complains about the bits of vegetables that are in my casserole. Surprise. So it could be Thursday night, leftover night, mystery soup night, surprise chili. We can all take some simple steps to eat what we buy. Now, back to those 32 bananas that my son brought home that I talked about in the beginning. We made banana bread. Of course, everyone makes banana bread. I tried banana skin bacon. Has anyone tried banana skin bacon? I don't think I'm going to make it again. But we tried it. We made muffins and we froze them for smoothies. And eventually we ate them all. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Lana. That was a charming story that I truly appreciate. So that's great. And the other thing I really wanted to take away from your point of view is the best by sell by dates are, usually for the prime of materials. There is no safety reason for anything with a date besides infant formula from the federal government. So really use your nose and fight with your mother-in-law when she thinks the yogurt date is at a date to throw it away, because it's not most times. So that's just a little dirty laundry from my house. So with that, I'm going to introduce our set of experts. And when Christina and Liz put this together, our traditional food recovery hierarchy was in play. So we kind of aligned with that. So we're going to tweak that a little bit today, but I think the intention is still there. So let's go to our first slide, and we're going to introduce Christy Berry from the Center for Ecotechnology, who is a longtime EPA grantee and has worked in the state of Rhode Island and Massachusetts on food waste issues for many years. So Christy, you're up.
Thank you. First of all, huge thanks to the EPA for inviting us to be part of this event, but also for all that you have done. As you mentioned, our organization has worked with the EPA for many, many, many years to help further food waste work nationwide. So CET, in short, my elevator pitch is we provide we administer a number of different waste and energy reduction programs that offer usually free assistance for businesses and institutions and occasionally residents in Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. And then we have a wasted food solutions resource. And through that, we do work nationally on wasted food. And that does often include infrastructure building as well. So we might work with a state or a town or a city to help do some train the trainers and get their similar programs to what we have here in New England available to a town in the Midwest that hasn't done that yet, or something like that. So we work on all the pieces of the puzzle through our work. Some of my favorite, so I'm representing, as Chris mentioned, we were sort of representing different pieces of the former hierarchy, and I love the new scale. I'm really excited about that. But speaking of source reduction, Lana went into that quite a bit, and it's a very, very powerful tool or a powerful piece of this. So I wanted to share a couple of my favorite high impact source reduction strategies. And I first wanted to acknowledge that a lot of food service businesses already are very tight with their materials. So like a small restaurant often doesn't, at least in their mind, they don't have a lot of food waste because they use what they buy because their margins are so tight anyway. So I wanted to acknowledge that, but to say that there often are overlooked opportunities, and I think we'll maybe see a little bit of that in our discussion later. So things like waste tracking and meal planning to identify what those opportunities are is one of my favorite strategies, of just knowing not only what offcuts you maybe have in the back of house, but what meals are coming back uneaten from the front of house more often. Like maybe you're really tight for everything that you're producing, but you're not paying attention to what's not getting used. And we have a case study on, for example, one restaurant that cut their portion size of French fries in half and saved a lot of money because they weren't basically throwing those extra French fries. I know everybody eats their French fries. I don't know what was going on with this place, but they weren't throwing that in the trash. They also left their skins on, so that saved a lot in terms of labor and other additional weight of material that they were previously composting, but now are not even throwing in any kind of trash at all. So that's super exciting. Note that there are some really great technologies out there to help with this. There's one called Lean Path. There's another called Food, PHOOD, where you have like an iPad with a scale and you're making note of exactly what's coming back. So that can be really, really helpful. And then Lana mentioned, I love that. I love upcycling. So taking things that otherwise would be wasted and turning them into something else while it's still possible to do so is a really, really great strategy that, again, is a back of house strategy that if you're paying a little bit of attention can be very lucrative for a business. And I have an example of that we can talk about more later. But yeah,
Great.
that's us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christy. Let's now switch to my favorite tier of the hierarchy personally, food donation. And Vineela Silva from Mo Life Food Pantry, would you please talk about your organization?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Vanilla. I am newly named the coordinator of the Mo equals Life Food Pantry. And Mo Life stands for Murphy and Others Living Interdependently for Future Endeavors. Mo Life was established in 1994. And the Mo equals Life Food Pantry was established in the year 2000. We are, Mo Life, we are a deliberately small, inclusive, non-site-based organization supporting individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And we dedicate to enhancing their lives in the areas of career development, housing, and community inclusion. Like I mentioned, the Mo Life Food Pantry opened in the year 2000. We serve an average of 700 clients per month, and in household would be about 400 per month of people in need within the greater New Bedford area. In addition, the pantry provides an opportunity for the people that we support to give back to the community by maintaining the pantry and distributing food. Our food pantry is collaborative venture with the United Way of Greater New Bedford. This work is helping others allows our individuals and our volunteers and our staff to become part of and give back to their community in a tangible and vitally important way. The pantry is open every Wednesday for food distribution from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Volunteer hours are from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And we are located at 725 Pleasant Street, right outside the old New Bedford Hotel building on the corner of Pleasant and Middle Street. Again, it's my honor to be here today. I'm very grateful for this opportunity. And thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Vineela. We'll hear from you again in a little bit. We're going to skip down to our diverting food to animals part of the hierarchy, and Jeff Kinder, he's the co-founder and farmer operating the Paradox Farm at the Round Bend Farm in South Dartmouth. Jeff.
Hi.
Welcome you.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Lana. That was a nice overview of food waste. What a huge issue and a huge problem. with a lot of potential great solutions. There's some here on the screen in the form of pigs. Yeah, so I raise livestock, and pigs are sort of my best food processors. They have a monogastric digestive system, just like we do. So they're very, very similar to us. And in the new food swoop, they're number 2 after humans. And then, so I'm also not only feeding animals food waste, but then composting their waste. So I keep them on a high carbon bedding, and so their manure goes into compost, which is I think number 3 on the swoop. And then the goal is to then use microbes to compost that waste and then spread it on land. So I'm kind of I'm a very small operation, and attempting to squeeze all of those nutrients out of food that are so valuable, that take all of that, all of the carbon emissions, the carbon producing, greenhouse gas producing, and just trying to kind of like localize nutrient needs and uses within agriculture in our area, and squeeze the most out of the imported nutrients that generally come in food. So yeah, more later. Thank you all for your work, and thanks.
Jeff, you might have coined a new term, the food swoop. I have not, we're calling it the food scale, but I think swoop has a little more cachet to it. So
I love it. I'm telling everyone tomorrow.
So thank you for that. Next, we're going to introduce Dan from RecycleWorks. And Dan's going to talk to us about his industrial uses for waste oils and rendering and fuel conversion. So Dan, you're up.
Hey, my name is Dan Bonigario. I'm the CFO of RecycleWorks, and I really appreciate the opportunity to primarily listen and hopefully speak a little bit too. But Lana, it was an incredible presentation. Thank you for putting that together, and keep fighting the good fight with bringing attention to the amount of food waste that is that's plaguing our country and the world right now. And that's what RecycleWorks set out to do when we started in 2016. We primarily use the unwanted food, whether that's trimmings, cuttings, unsold food from grocery stores, production off specs from factories, bottling plants, all sorts of different reasons why food may be deemed unwanted or inedible. Our job as a company is to collect that and divert it to the highest and best use. To, as of before the wonderful new swoop was introduced, we were using the food waste pyramid, and luckily, similar to Jeff, kind of touch each part of the swoop, whether it's bringing production off spec to farmers, down to collecting and depackaging unwanted organics, food from grocery stores, or bottled beverages from production facilities, and then compost and digestate management on the back end of it. Our goal as a company is to divert the absolute maximum amount of food waste possible from the landfill, and we're proud to have rolled out our zero waste program throughout New England and increasingly nationwide. And I appreciate everyone coming together to talk about this extremely important topic tonight.
Great. Yes, I see we're back to RecycleWorks. So thank you so much, Dan, and for your work in this area as well. Let's now jump to our composting layer. Andrew, who is the co-founder of Black Earth Compost, who picks up residential food waste, among other food waste generators. So Andrew, please take it away.
Hello, my name's Andrew. I'm from Black Earth. I run the compost side of the business. We're an integrated collection and compost business, and that's a great model because it allows us to keep our costs as low as possible. And that's what's most important, is keeping costs down for the residents, because then it brings more of them into the fold, which is really what we're trying to do. I'll also mention I'm a pioneer, so I'm really happy to see the Marion Institute hosting this. So we're in Massachusetts, and we have 3 compost facilities in Manchester, Mass, which is the one in the bottom right. You can see that's under construction. We have another one in Groton, which is the bottom left, and then we have another one in Framingham. And these are municipal facilities that are regional in nature, and they provide savings to the towns and also cost stability for them for their trash costs. You know, these are first mover towns that see the costs increasing. I think I'm speaking for composting here. I think in general, composting is the best solution for your residential material, because it's generally like residents eat a lot of the food, and they leave a lot of the stuff that can't go to pig feed or can't go to digestion. They like the bones, the rinds, and such. That stuff is better for composting. And yeah, that's my 2 minutes.
That's great. Thank you, Andrew. And much appreciated. Like Lana said in her presentation, about 40% of the food waste comes from our homes. So it's a great model, and I'm a patron of Black Earth. So thank you. Last but not least, we have Marissa from the Greater New Bedford Regional Refuse Management District, who's going to talk to us. When I do the hierarchy, I usually put a big X over landfill, and Marissa's going to push that message forward. So all yours.
Thank you, Chris. I am the big X. Yes, exactly.
Not the swoop. Yes.
Right. So I am the waste reduction manager for the Greater New Bedford Regional Refuse Management District. We are a government organization, and we serve the city of New Bedford and the town of Dartmouth in Massachusetts. I'm going to highlight 2 things that we do. One is that we have our waste reduction office, which includes myself and 2 other staff. The 2 other staff are listening. Hi, Meg, and hi, Janet. The second thing that we do is that we run the local landfill where New Bedford and Dartmouth's trash is disposed of. Our landfill, well, I'll mention the name, I forgot, the Crapo Hill landfill. So it opened in 1995, and currently we estimate that there are 5 more years remaining in the existing area where we're putting trash. We call it the cell. And so you can see on the slide, this is a picture of our landfill. The green area is the part that's already been filled in with waste. And then we're working towards the back, which is the top of the photo. If you don't live in New Bedford or Dartmouth, your trash might go to the waste to energy facility in Rochester or another facility. I know there are others from even out of state listening. In Massachusetts, our state's capacity to dispose of trash has been declining. So that means there is less space for trash. More and more trash from Massachusetts is being exported to other states. So we are the waste reduction office. So we feel that landfills and waste to energy facilities should be the last option for disposing of waste that can't otherwise be reduced, prevented, refused, reused, repaired, recycled, or composted, or I'm sure there are other R's we could add in there. But then focusing in on the food waste makes up around 20% of the trash disposed at our landfill. And so as we look to extend the life of our landfill, food waste is an obvious focus for us. And so I look forward to talking more about some solutions for dealing with food waste.
Great. Thank you, Marissa. So we're going to switch to a panel discussion now a little bit, and we have a few questions. We're going to target a few of our panelists to get kind of a conversation going. Also, please put your questions in the chat, and I see some answers and questions going there. So my first question to the panelists is, what part of Lana's keynote address landed for you? And what would you like to emphasize or comment on? So Christy, can we start with you?
Sure, thank you. Loved your presentation, Lana. Thank you for that. First of all, I'm enamored with the new swoop. That's super great. But I love the new additions on that. I think that is really helpful to tease out some, now that we've come further in our food waste journey as a culture. I think it's helpful to tease out some of the bits and pieces of some of the approaches, that some versions of this approach are better than other versions of this approach with regards to the bigger picture. So that's very helpful. And I was also just noting yay for the Best By dates comment, because I think it speaks to education about food waste and food management being something that could be very helpful. So thank you for those bits.
Great. Dan, would you like to talk about your impressions of Lana's keynote?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as an avid leftovers eater, I think there's a lot that we can all take away from it. And, I think getting the message out about the various sources of food waste and the importance of addressing all the locations where this waste is generated, from on the farm to the production facilities, to the distribution centers, to the grocery stores, to the households. What we need to do as a team is to take a collaborative approach to address all of those, and to help people start to see how they can play a role in each part of those. There's not Jeff might be one of few farmers here in Massachusetts, but in other states and other parts of the country, that might be an area where you could address this effectively, to the distribution centers, the grocery stores, and then everything Andrew's doing with the households and industrial, the institutional hospitals, colleges, that type of stuff. I think it's great to get that message out, that we can all play a role to address this at all its different stages.
And Dan, I want to hit on what you said. It's wasted food, right? Like we stand on our heads not to say food waste, because wasted food is a resource. It's really not a waste. So
that's exactly right. It's a source of energy and it's a wonderful resource.
Yep. And I'm guilty of saying food waste myself, but I try very, very hard to get that message across. So thank you for that.
I apologize.
No. Yeah, you were right on target. So one more on this one. How about Marissa? What would you like to add to the conversation?
Sure. I think it's an interesting comment on what we call it. So I do still call it food waste, because it's not all edible food. It can be the peels and the apple cores. And so I still see it as food waste, but I should probably gear myself to changing my terminology. I love the presentation, Lana, and we're definitely on the same page in our thinking. I think the thing that struck me most is thinking about all the resources that go into making this food, all the land, the water, the energy, to get the food to us. And then from our end, we see it at the landfill. So again, 20% of what goes in our landfill is food. So it's just really striking. You think of all those resources for that to end up in the landfill. And so I'm really happy we're talking about all this today. And I think it's great we can talk about solutions, better options for food than going in the landfill. Thank you, Lana, for your presentation. It was fantastic.
Great. All right. Well, so we're going to switch it up just a little bit. We're going to reach out to another question. So for everyone on the panel, this is going to go around the room, so to speak. I wanted you to talk about your greatest challenge that you are facing in the food waste world. See, I just said food waste world, wasted food world. And where is the opportunity for you to make progress? So Christy, we'll start at the top again, because you were you're at the top of the hierarchy.
Sure.
Or the
Thanks.
swoop.
The swoop. I'm on the left side of the swoop. But also to me, it's like a seesaw. Also have kids, so that's maybe where my brain is. Well, one challenge, actually, this is the minor challenge, but I neglected to mention earlier that one of the major programs that we administer is the Recycling Works in Massachusetts program that is funded by the DEP. And I say that in part because I was joking with Dan when we met that they are Recycle Works, we are Recycling Works. We get confused all the time. So that's a very minor challenge, but a real one nonetheless. Speaking of what we call things. Yeah. Yep. Roll right off the tongue. But I think one of the big challenges that we certainly face in our work, in my experience, is first of all, awareness of waste as a key piece of your sustainability. So I work in both waste and energy, and I feel like for most of our customers, when you say sustainability, people think energy efficiency first, and then they think electric first, and we actually work a lot with natural gas, and then they think waste, but then they think recycling, and wasted food is just not even on a lot of people's radar. So I think the solution for that, of course, is continued education, getting awareness of this piece of the puzzle just out there so that people know that this is something that not should, because we don't want to green shame anyone, but that they could be thinking about as if they want to be more sustainable. And I work with businesses a lot. So if you have a business that wants to be more sustainable, energy efficiency is awesome. Definitely do that. And also look at your waste. Look at how, if you're constructing a new facility, you're thinking about the energy efficiency piece and the heating and cooling of the facility. Are you thinking about how your waste systems are going to work in the facility when you build it? That kind of thing. And then I think the other big challenge is resources to do all that. So a lot of businesses that we work with, they don't have the capacity in terms of time, they don't have the bandwidth, they don't have the labor, they don't have the whatever to even do a deep assessment of what their situation is in the first place, and then figure out what the changes are that they need to make. So that's part of where our organization comes in, is to help offer that assistance to streamline it for them. But having resources available to do that, and then again, a waste and energy crossover. For the energy work, at least here in Massachusetts, we have the Mass Save program. There are readily available incentives. Everyone's very familiar with that system. But in waste, we're dealing it's all stick and not a lot of carrot in a lot of cases. So more education, again, about what those carrots are for waste work, I think could be really, really helpful. I'll stop
Thank
there.
you, Christy.
Thank
Vanilla,
you.
you're up.
All right, thank you. Again, I do want to say we are at MOLF, we are very grateful to be part of the Greater Boston Food Bank. They are our reliable source of food, securing food, especially the fresh and the healthy foods. And when it comes to food waste, it's not a big challenge right now because we at the pantry, I don't see us really wasting a lot of food or throwing out unless food comes to us a little spoiled or rotten, then we would have to get rid of it. But I am willing and want to learn other ways to make sure that even these foods that are a bit rotten can be disposed properly, and not the way we've been disposing it by just, placing it in the trash, unfortunately. So like I said, not too many challenges, but then again, where we are located, it doesn't have access for the community to be able to go inside the food pantry and be able to shop for specific foods that they know they would eat, versus that we are pre-making the bags and they are receiving what we are giving out. So a lot of times they might bring home things that they're not going to use. And because, again, I don't have the ability to really get a little bit more personal with our families that come through and ask them, like, what do you need? What don't you need? And what do you do with the food that you don't use? I'm afraid that maybe some of them may be just tossing it away. If not, they don't have no one to use it. So community engagement, maintaining that support is actually, again, I don't think it's a challenge. It's going very well as we are partnered with, like I mentioned, the Greater Boston Food Bank, the United Way. I also want to thank PACE for being another great community support of ours.
Great. Thank you,
Yeah.
Vanilla. I think you brought up a really interesting point, and this was a worry with some of the legislation that passed, is will food banks be dumped on, right? Will you get food that is really not edible? And I'm glad to hear that that isn't a huge issue for you. But I do think you and Christy should probably have a conversation and maybe a potential audit. And she can talk to you about opportunities that might be out there
Yes.
for whatever you do generate from the actual food pantry. But thank you for your work and for your solution. Because again, I think donation is so much a part of the solution to the area of wasted food. Jeff, do you want to talk about challenges and opportunities on your farm?
Yeah, challenges and opportunities. So challenges of a small farm are numerous. Staying healthy is a big personal challenge in the face of all the things that need to be done every day. It's kind of a different subject from wasted food. Yeah, wasted food. Yeah, and then the financial challenges of the day-to-day, keeping machines running, paying insurance, guaranteeing land access. Yeah, things like that. I mean, those are, like I said, kind of basic day-to-day challenges. In terms of the wasted food specifically and the ability to do larger scale composting, I think for me, one of the challenges is to have enough patience to sort of wait for things to come into place, like as a farm, to be able to do it legally in the eyes of the EPA and in the eyes of the state and in the eyes of the town and in the eyes of my landlord. And you know, because there's a little bit of a stigma around composting and the smells that it potentially creates, and the nuisance issues like rodents, different things. I think everybody loves composting just like they love farming. They might, I would venture to guess that they may not love the reality of it being next door to them. And I think, you know, I'm sure Andrew and Dan can probably speak better to this, having had more experience of doing it on a larger scale. I do think it can be well done. And so solutions to those challenges, I think, are finding ways to empower small farms to take on wasted food processing through feeding animals, through composting, and thinking of farms as not only as food producers, but as waste processors.
Yeah.
I think that's been the reality for a long time. And I think if we can start to embrace farms that way, I think it could also be beneficial for the bottom line of a lot of farms to take, not be paying for feed, but actually being paid to take feed onto their farm, doing the work of raising animals or actually processing those nutrients by composting, and then getting the benefit of the product that they produce as well. So squeezing more profit out of the nutrients that we handle as farmers, I think is a path forward for small farming, at least.
And the NIMBY situation is certainly real in this densely populated part of the world that we live in. So I appreciate those comments. Dan, challenges, opportunities?
Yeah. So I think some of these challenges are universal, which, you know, to the idea of the NIMBYism, and everybody loves the idea of reclaiming unwanted food until you meet the realities of it, which have some of the downsides of the waste industry combined with some of the smells of unwanted food. So our business primarily, our primary outlet for the wasted food that we collect is anaerobic digestion, which is a process that uses that unwanted or wasted food to generate renewable natural gas. It's a wonderful process. It's one that is difficult to explain to people in a few words. We tend to just describe it as like the human stomach, which our reality is that some of the limitations are also similar to the human stomach in that you can't just eat lettuce all day. So if there's a recall on lettuce, that needs to be combined and blended with the right amount of other nutrients in order to create the optimal gas yield and extract as much energy as possible from that unwanted food. So we deal with that day in and day out of, hey, there's too much cola in this and not enough protein. And so that's something that we've had to deal with. And then, you know, the operational challenges that come with any large scale operation, as I'm sure Andrew can attest to, contaminants, the things that find their way into our bins and our collection systems, toasters, golf clubs, iPads, all sorts of things that are certainly not unwanted food that
Not
we have to
organic,
work.
yes.
That's exactly right. Inorganic. And, you know, it's been a challenge for us, quite frankly, just to help people to understand that, yes, we can take everything from your grocery store, but the shelves and signs cannot be part of the food waste stream. Those have to be handled separately and recycled elsewhere, which we're happy to do. They just can't go in the same bucket.
You know, that's a great segue to Andrew, because I can imagine contamination in compost is obviously a huge issue. So Andrew, what are your challenges and opportunities?
Sure, yeah. Contamination is always a problem, but that's really just the nature of what we're all trying to do. We're taking things that are distributed in the world and bringing them back to a place. Like that will always have mistakes and contamination. So it's really part of the game, and you just have to assume it's going to be there. And so we've developed systems to assume that. Our challenges, I mean, short term, you know, as Jeff said, there's a stigma that compost smells and causes rats, but modern facilities that have actual infrastructure don't need to have those issues. And we aren't just a tractor in the field. You know, there's no other public services that just operates in a barren field. You know, it can be done on the farm, but at scale, we have modern facilities where we're handling the material inside. Long term, and I'll spice up the conversation a bit. I think we should be careful about centralized solutions. They are expensive and they have more NIMBYism because they're larger. And they're usually, for those reasons, they're in far from the areas where food's produced, which means longer trucking distances, more diesel trucks waiting in line to dump. That's all more fuel, labor, and truck costs, and that's a climate impact. The other thing is, I think we should be careful of long term is co-collection that mixes trash and recycle and/or wasted food. I think this leads to a lower quality feedstock that's harder to recycle or upcycle. And if you go down that path, just like we've done with single stream and recycle, if you go down that path, it's going to be hard to backtrack, and you have a less valuable feedstock that's going to be harder to, you know, divert in the future up to animal feed. You know, ultimately that's where we need to be headed. And you know, there is a place, like stuff will always be digested, stuff will always be composted. But if we go down a co-collection route, we might be tied to certain solutions. And the opportunities, I'd say, you know, we went to Austria this year to see their system. They dealt with the waste crisis 30 years ago, and you know, they have 400 compost facilities in a country the size of Maine with 9 million people.
Wow, that's great. And that's one thing we didn't talk about tonight is community composting, right? Which is another opportunity on a much smaller scale. We could spend a whole 2 hours on that alone. So Marissa, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit since we're running out of time. and kind of skip to the end of our kind of conversation, where I'm going to ask you is two things. What would your message be to the public on this issue? And then I'll let you kind of wave your magic wand at the same time and combine our last two questions. And we'll go through the whole panel and everyone can answer the same as we wrap up and end our time together.
Sure. Sounds good. So I can suggest many things. Some of the things we've already talked about. So first, reduce the amount of food that's wasted. That's going to be our biggest impact. Look at the different strategies that Lana and Christy suggested. These tips can reduce waste, but also save us money with the high cost of food. And then, as Lana said, then we have less wasted food to manage. Consider backyard composting. Once you get in the habit, it's really easy to do. My family of 6, including 4 kids, compost our wasted food at home. So we don't have heavy, smelly trash bags. In fact, there's no wasted food in our trash. But note that we don't eat meat. Meat, bones, and shells don't go in a backyard compost bin. If you live in New Bedford, drop off food waste at the recycling center. This is a new program. So all unpackaged food waste is accepted, including meats, bones, and shells. Just make sure to use BPI certified compostable bags to contain the materials and no plastic bags. Speaking of contamination, we continue to see plastic bags in these containers at the recycling center, despite our efforts to educate residents that it's only compostable bags. So there's always challenges. And then follow us on social media, because we have lots of tips about how to reduce your wasted food, but also how to reduce your waste overall. And then I have a magic wand now. So with my magic wand, in the next few years, I would see a robust system for recovering edible food and diverting inedible food from the landfill. And that would include a well-functioning network of organizations that donate edible food. So that could include hospitals, the jail, schools, restaurants. And so they would be donating their edible food to community organizations that distribute the food to those in need. And those community organizations have all the things that they need to do that. Then I'd also look for a local commercial outlet for wasted food, whether it's a composting facility or an anaerobic digester. Having this type of outlet could help food generating businesses like restaurants divert their inedible food waste. It hasn't been mentioned yet, but the state actually has a ban on food waste for certain entities. And so if an entity is generating at least a half a ton of food waste per week, they have to divert any of the material over the half ton. So it's like not allowed in the trash, it's banned. So this type of facility could help those restaurants and businesses meet that ban, the requirements. Having a commercial outlet would also lead to more options for residents to keep food waste out of their trash. Magic wand, we'd have more backyard composting. I'm a huge fan of backyard composting. You don't need to send a truck up and down the street with backyard composting. I know it's not for everybody, but for those that can, it's an easy solution, and you get free fertilizer, free soil amendment for your property. So great option. And then more awareness, as we've already discussed. And I'm really happy that we have the summit, because this is a good step in terms of bringing awareness of these issues. Thanks.
Wow, that's great. You hit on so many great topics. I appreciate that. And I actually, for those of you who have the gallery shot on, I see Dana here from Rescuing Leftover Cuisine. And we didn't talk about her, but she's the matchmaker between the food waste generator and the soup kitchen or the outlet. So another piece of the puzzle that we didn't highlight today, but I couldn't resist since I saw your face, Dana. So let's go to, we'll mess it up a little bit. Dan, you were shaking your head yes. So let's talk about your, what's your final message to the public and your magic wand? What would you say? We have 9 minutes left, so just be respectful. We got to chug along pretty quick.
I promise I'll keep it as short as possible. It's two things and a lot of them overlap. One, just increased regulatory capacity and interest in these types of programs, whether it's permitting, siting facilities, and getting the word out there to make more people aware that their unwanted food or their inedible food truly is a resource, and that this team we've assembled can help them to capture it in all the different aspects. So that's all, just increased permitting and increased awareness and more food diverted from the landfill to the highest and best use.
Excellent. Who else is on our panel? Jeff, your final magic wand words?
Yeah, so recommendations to the public and the magic wand. I'm going to give some farmy recommendations. I think chickens are really easy to keep once you get used to it. I think also a compost pile is really easy to keep, and both of those are great food producers. And then that would lead to my next conclusion, which is if you have the opportunity, please consider gardening. It's a beautiful, creative way to spend your time and spiritually connect to land. And it's wonderful. It allows you to be human, I think. And then magic wand, this is a weird one. I don't know if it's necessarily related to wasted food, but I always thought it would be cool to stop developing new technologies for like 10 years so that we as a species could just settle into using what we have and really like developing relationships and developing our trades and not just waiting for the next best thing.
It's charming, Jeff. And we won't talk about the Apple philosophy on that one, but that's okay. Vinila, how about yourself?
My magic wand would have food security would become a reality. With diverse and inclusive services, food pantries' ability to cater to diverse cultural and dietary needs of the community that we serve, making sure everyone feels respected and included, ensuring consistency, supply of nutritious and diverse foods for our clients, and addressing issues to logistics and community engagement.
Yes, heartfelt. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Christy, what's are your parting words for us?
Sure, thanks. First of all, Marissa, thanks for mentioning the waistbands. I actually, as part of the Recycling Works in Massachusetts program, we follow up on warning letters that get sent to businesses. I just got a new batch this morning. So I'm the one who calls businesses. So and says, hey, you might have a problem. We can help for free. What the public can do is, this is sort of a callback to Senator Montigny's comments, ask your favorite restaurants and grocery stores what they're doing with their food waste. And if the answer is nothing, let them know that there are free resources available to help them do something and figure out where the easiest places are to start. A lot of these programs, like the ones that we administer, like the Recycling Works program, we pride ourselves on meeting businesses where they are and finding what the easiest first steps are. Start somewhere. When in doubt, just start where you can and keep taking those steps. And in another 3-5 years, you'll be further than you were now. And that's great. And Jeff, to your mention of backyard chickens, fun fact, I have a side gig for about 15 years now helping people keep backyard chickens. So you can look up Yardbirds backyard chickens if you want. I noticed that CMAP is on the call too. I've worked with them a couple times wearing that hat. But my magic wand is definitely more readily available resources. So education about wasted food, like I mentioned earlier, it's just not on a lot of people's radar. So education about it, why it's important, and that there are things that you can do, and that sometimes they're as easy as just changing what you're already doing very slightly to produce less in the first place. And then resources available for people on making bigger changes, if there are bigger changes to be made, so that they have the capacity to do that. And really looking at a lot of small businesses in that regard. I know there are some resources available, but it takes resources to find out what those resources are. So it's definitely a limiting factor for a lot of folks just to be able to have that bandwidth. And dreaming here, and Jeff, I realize this is the reverse of your sort of slow life mentality of not waiting for the next technology, but I'm waiting for more refrigerators that are shallower but wider, So you eliminate the lost in the back issue for good. That would be my dream.
That's very funny. I guess they're smart refrigerators, right? That keep track of what goes in
Yeah,
and goes
and
out.
like smaller
Talk about
doors.
technology. Yeah.
That's true.
That was pretty crazy technology. I've never seen it implemented, but they tried to sell me one recently. I was like, nah, I just want a fridge. But so Andrew, and then Lana, I'm going to come back to you to wrap us up at the end. Then you can have the final word on the climate to waste connection. So Andrew.
Thank you. I'd say highest and best use. I'd like to see more of the food rescued for humans. And then after that, all the food waste we can long-term should go to animal feed. And when it can't, where composting's here. I'd say if you're from another state and you're interested in the food waste bans, like I give lots of props to Mass DEP. I think they did the food waste bans right by graduating it from 1 ton per week, and then they let the private industry come up and handle that, and then they drop the food waste ban, and then more is to be captured and private industry can catch up. So I think it was a great model. My magic wand, I think our country has a lot more capacity for more regional food production, and I'd like to see more of that, like within outside of 2 hours, 3 hours outside of our metro areas. There's a lot of farmland that could be producing a lot of food for those metro areas. And this food waste that we're all collecting can be the nutrition source. Because otherwise we're kind of dependent on import nutrients from foreign mines every year system. And that's kind of fragile. So I think more regional food production, more small farms is my magic wand.
Andrew, it's great that you said that. I have the luxury of working across the whole state of Massachusetts, and I said New England, and I just had the pleasure of working with the North Central Food Policy. It's not the council, they have a different name, but they are working very hard to combine farmers to schools, and just making a much more tighter network in that part of the state for that exact reason. So another positive outcome of COVID, actually. So It's Growing Places is spearheading that up in the Leominster area. What's Chair City? I'm blanking on Chair City with a G. Gardner. The Gardner area. So Lana, let's have the last word. And then Christine.
There are so many. It's hard to pick, but on any final words. But although this topic seems enormous and overwhelming, and what you as one person just seems insignificant, someone else said, we all have to work together. And so that's what I want to emphasize, that it's not something that any one individual can solve by themselves, but we really need to work together. All those individual actions add up, and we can all together really make a difference.
All right. Thank you all. Great panel discussion. Great keynote for all. I know there's a few questions in here. Thomas O'Donnell, is a New Bedford landfill in the picture full? Looks like you're almost out of space. Never mind, you just answered only 5 more years. So I just wanted to reiterate that. For anyone on the panel, what are the couple of main gaps holding back how much you can prevent or divert?
I think awareness, right? Just to summarize what everyone said, Christine, is like folks don't know about this, right? Getting the word out. I think it's great. I don't know if any of you read the New York Times Wirecutter, but their message was wasted food, right? The New York Times now covers wasted food. And I can tell you, when I embarked on this journey close to 20 years ago, the New York Times was not covering wasted food. So I'd love to see it in mainstream media, and hope to see more of that.
Okay. And Vanilla, there was a question also, do you donate prepared food? I just want to allow you to clarify what you do.
Yeah, so we do not donate prepared food. We provide 3 different bags, usually frozen items, a bag of non-perishable, and a bag of fresh produce and fruits.
Okay. That's it. Thank you all. Thank you, Christine Beling for the MC. Thank you, Lana Suarez for the fantastic keynote, and all the panelists who have worked very hard. We will be sending out this recording, also a survey, a post-conference survey. And just thank you again.